42nd episode. Oh, I almost said annual, but I caught myself. The
Thank
42nd
you.
episode of the Have Aloha Will Travel podcast, your podcast about everything Hawaii. I am your co-host, Kevin Allen, with me, as always,
Catherine Todd Foxer with Hawaiʻi Magazine and 42.
We are
Very,
episode 42.
This is a big number for us. It is a big number for everything. Have you never heard of the significance of the number 42 ever?
No, I don't think so.
Have you ever read the book The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams?
It's the answer to everything.
The answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything. 42. That's us.
That's a good number.
We are going to give you the answers to life, the universe, and everything on this podcast.
We're definitely going to give you the answers to Hawaii's reopening.
I thought you wanted to talk about how hot it was first.
Oh my gosh. So I had to turn my AC off to record this podcast, which was a tough thing to do because it's been brutal lately. Am I wrong, Kat, or has it been really hot?
It's been unbearably hot, I would say.
We've got our summer, because I feel like every summer we get that like real mugginess, that real hot mugginess for a few weeks.
This is different.
But this is different, and it came way later. Normally by October we're kind of out of the woods, but yeah, this is brutal.
It's blisteringly hot. It's not even, I don't think temperature-wise it's that hot. It's just that there's no wind.
Yeah. I feel like that's always the problem, is when the trade winds stop, and then you're just left with heat.
This is when working in an office is a good thing.
Oh, yeah, because our office is underground and AC to the max.
Yeah. I miss wearing like winter clothes to the office.
Yeah, I don't have to pay the electricity bill of the office, but I definitely have to pay my electricity bill. So when I run my AC for 16 hours straight, my electricity bill goes through the roof. Yeah, it's been super hot here in the islands. I went surfing. We've both been surfing, right? It's been good.
It's been good.
The waves have been very good. I don't know if that's like just global warming, like shifting the seasons around, but the water itself was very hot.
Yeah, the water's warm.
Like, it's normally when you paddle out, when you go surfing, you kind of get away from the beach and the water gets a lot colder because you're kind of further away from, You know that you and I surf at very different times of the day.
I don't relate to this at all.
Okay. Well, let me tell you, for people who surf in the afternoon, it's so hot near the beach because a lot of people are like in the water, and it really heats up the water, especially where I go surfing. But man, yesterday I went out and I paddled maybe 300 yards away from the shore just to find the cold water. I had a paddle super far out, and then I had to dive like maybe 20 feet underwater.
You are so dramatic.
I'm actually not lying though. It was so hot.
Oh,
I had to cool down. But the weather's also been incredible, which is perfect for the reopening of Oahu, at least, kind of. This is such a strange subject. It's a state, right?
It's just complicated, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Yeah, so I think this episode, just to give people an idea of what we're going to be talking about, we're going to be talking about the state reopening to tourism, kind of, sort of. I mean, it's not. We're just offering this pre-travel testing program on October 15, which people have just kind of taken to mean that we're reopening to tourism, because now, if people do this pre-travel testing program, they don't have to quarantine for 14 days when they get here, which obviously is stopping just about everyone from traveling, because why would you travel anywhere and then sit in a hotel room for 14 days? But it's a complicated subject that we get a lot of questions about.
Well, I mean, think about it. It's not a simple thing to organize on a state level. It is not a simple thing to enforce. I mean, that's a question that we talk about all the time, right? Is how can you tell the difference between visitors who have the negative COVID test versus those who don't when they're out in the water? Like, you have no idea.
Yeah.
So, and how are you going to enforce it? I mean, are people going to get those, what do they call those electrical bracelets on their, or anklets like they do in jail? I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea how they're going to do this.
It is going to be very difficult because, I think even before this, a lot of the HPD was very strict on giving out violations, because I'd always heard that the reason why they were so strict about giving violations to people when we had stricter restrictions was because they needed to make enforcement like as clear as possible. Like, oh, if you're in this park, doesn't matter if you're just walking through it or whatever, you're getting a violation, because they said that the parks were off limits for a while.
Right.
But when you add in, gosh, how many visitors would we get a day
So
in the summer?
normally, in the summer, we would get like 35,000 a day on average. And now, I mean, at one point during the shutdown, we were getting like less than 100.
Yeah,
and those are, a lot of them are return residents who are coming home. And they anticipate the numbers are going to go up to, I think we're at like 1,000 now a day. They're
Just
thinking
about.
by October 15th, it'll go up to about 5,000. But it's still vastly, less than we used to have, right?
But I think the state needs it. We have a lot of we have a big visitor industry. A lot of people, their jobs are dependent on people coming to the islands. So October 15, people will be able to test if 72 hours before their flight, they have to take a test to see if they have COVID-19. And if that test comes in negative, then they can come to the islands or at least they can come to Oahu and not have to go through the 14-day quarantine period. And certain airlines, pretty much most of the major airlines, have made this a lot easier, at least for people who live in major gateway cities like San Francisco and LA, because I know we wrote a story about Hawaiian Airlines. They're offering COVID-19 testing at like their own locations. I'm actually not even too sure how like someone would just go about getting a COVID-19 test. I mean, is that just at like CVS or?
I think the state is working with some partners, and CVS Health is one of them. Kaiser Permanente is another one. And these tests have to be a certain kind of test. So we wrote a story. We'll put a link in our show notes, explaining to you the kind of test that's accepted. And you do have to there's a process. Like, you have to fill out this online form that you answer a bunch of health survey questions. And that's where you would indicate whether or not you have a negative COVID-19 test. And that's for everyone in your party over the age of 5. So if you're traveling with anyone younger than 5, you don't need to have a COVID test. What's crazy to me is you could be on the plane with people who didn't take a COVID test, and you could get COVID on the plane. So by the time you get here, you could have COVID. It's so insane.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
We'll just have to wait and see, I guess. But anyways, so major airlines like Hawaiian, United, Alaska, let's see. I have my notes here. United Airlines, Alaska, Hawaiian, and American Airlines. They're all doing their own test offering. And that'll cost extra money. I don't know how much a normal COVID-19 test costs, but these will cost anywhere between $90. $90 for the normal testing, but if you I know Hawaiian Airlines, for example, offers a very expedited test where you can get your results back within 24 hours. So if you're flying to Hawaii, within the day, they offer that kind of test for, double the price. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the islands, I guess, are ready for it.
It's interesting timing too, because, it's a complicated issue, and there are definitely two sides, right? People that are very pro the tourism industry because it does support a lot of our residential workforce, right? A lot of people work for hotels or restaurants. A lot of businesses here are dependent on tourists or the visitor industry. So I see that side. And then there's the other side that's saying, hey, this is a time for Hawaii to pivot, to look at building other industries that aren't so tourism dependent, also looking at the health and safety of the people who live here, for example. And I think both sides have points. I mean, they're both valid arguments, in my opinion. It is an interesting time. We passed our big summer season.
Yeah.
Right. And summer and we're also entering into our shoulder season. And it's also entering into flu season, which is going to complicate COVID-19 cases in general. We are also still in tier 1. Visitors who are planning to come in October should know that we still have 2 more weeks of keeping our 7-day average of new cases and our average positivity rate at a certain level before we can move to tier 2. And so you might be coming in tier 1 when, it's still limited as far as like how many people you can gather with or what's open and what's not open. So that's an interesting kind of wrinkle.
Yeah. So, I mean, for example, tier 1 is pretty restrictive. Like right now, we can't go and dine out with people who are not living in the same household as us. And at a lot of restaurants, my girlfriend and I, for example, we go to Waioli Tea House every Saturday. It's become a tradition. But now we have to fill out a sign-in sheet where you write down your name and your address, and you got to make sure it all lines up. So that could be a real bummer for visitors. You make some friends during your visit, but you can't go dine in with them because then, I mean, I guess you technically are not a part of the same household, which I don't know if that makes sense either, because I mean, you're also both on vacation, so like,
right.
what does it matter, I guess? But right. That's just the kind of restrictions we currently have, and not every type of business right now is open.
Well, that includes short-term rentals. Right now in tier 1, short-term rentals are not supposed to be operating too. So that does kind of limit where your accommodation options. And not all hotels are going to be open too in October, right?
Yeah, you are correct. So right now, I mean, the hotel industry, if anyone wants to get back to work, it's the hotel industry. But I mean, they have to scramble. I can't even imagine like what it's like being a general manager for a hotel right now, like having to get all of your staff back and having to get everything back in order, because a lot of our major hotels closed down during this period. They had to furlough all their staff, and now they got to either rehire or contact every single one of their furloughed staff and try to tell them, that there's going to be a clear reopening date.
Well, not only that, they have to retrain their staff because now there's different safety protocols, right? And it's a different world now for visitors, and it's untested. It's not like these hotels were operating during COVID when there were visitors here. I mean, some hotels have stayed open. We were talking earlier that Kahala has remained open, for example. But, a lot of these other hotels, like they're having to come up with like protocol,
Yeah,
So
definitely.
it's a whole different thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and so we have a few examples. I mean, we just both did some cursory glances, but even like a major hotel like the Ka'anapali Beach Hotel, which I know is very popular with visitors, they're not going to be open until December 1st. So right. People who want to jump right into Hawaii right on October 15, maybe that's not a great idea, because a lot of these major hotels won't be open yet.
Right.
A lot of people really appreciate like going to the same hotel, because they become friendly with the staff, and they end up kind of calling it their second home. And a lot of people feel that way about Ka'anapali Beach Hotel, but because I don't know why. It could be retraining, it could be getting everyone back together, it could be coming up with these new safety regulations, but they're not going to be open until December 1st. I know Paia Inn will be opening on October 15. So kind of on the opposite spectrum, and that's a much smaller hotel. I mean, they only have maybe 8-10 rooms. They're pretty tiny, so maybe right. That's why they can reopen a lot quicker. They say.
I think a lot of the hotels are looking at November, right?
Yeah.
The Aulani on Oahu, Hilton Hawaiian Village is looking at December, but a lot of them are looking at, I think, November openings.
Yeah.
There are some that have no opening set dates, like the Halekulani is going through renovation, so they're not going to open until 2021. Espacio Waikiki, that super fancy hotel that we both wrote about, they don't have an opening date yet either.
Yeah, if
so
you're planning
I think
on spending
there's still a lot of flux.
$5,000 a night.
Well, to me, if you're going to have to quarantine for 14 days, let's just quarantine at a $5,000 a night place. I mean, come on.
If you've got the money, go for it. That's actually a really good point, is that I feel like a lot of hotels have decided, like, hey, now's our time to renovate, because, no one's coming to Hawaii right now. A lot of hotels are just going to be closed for renovation.
Right.
And there's actually a lot of renovation just going on, like in general.
Oh yeah, like road work.
Road
So
work
much road work.
everywhere. They're right now they're deciding to just fill every pothole on Oahu.
Yeah, and it's like, so there is no traffic right now because everyone is working from home. So they create traffic by doing road work. I'm like, oh, you just can't get away from the traffic.
Do you know if the Magic Island parking lot is open yet? Because
no, it's not. I was just there.
Right? That's been closed for a long time too. Again, because I think the city's really just trying to take advantage of the emptiness.
They're resurfacing the parking lot at Ala Moana.
Yeah, so
and I think people should also keep that in mind. Good thing you mentioned that, is that Hawaii isn't exactly ready. I mean, I wouldn't say it's not ready. Not everybody's open.
Yeah.
And a lot of businesses have shuttered permanently because of COVID-19. So when you come and you expect to go to Buzz's Steakhouse in Kailua or the Kitchen on Maui, I mean, you should really do some research to know ahead of time if your hotels are open or going to be open, if the restaurants you love to go to are going to be open. Yeah,
we've seen a lot of permanent business closures, especially for like businesses that have been around for a long time. That a lot of visitors have known for a long time. For example, like Buzz's Steakhouse, that's a huge one. In Haleiwa, there's the North Shore Soap Factory, not the one in the sugar mill, but the one in actual Haleiwa town that I'd always seen visitors coming in and out of. They're closing permanently. The Glassblowing Art Gallery in Haleiwa also closing permanently.
Yeah, there's been a lot of restaurants that have decided to close permanently that I think visitors are familiar with, like Top of Waikiki, that rotating restaurant.
I didn't know that. Really?
Yeah, they've closed permanently. Nobu Honolulu closed permanently too. That was kind of earlier in the
Like Drive-In. My heart and soul.
Oh, stop. We talked about this like 17 episodes ago already.
I'm going to keep talking about it. It's so sad. God. What a classic. Their sign's still up. That really bums me out when the sign is still up. It just says like in. They're not even going to fix it anymore.
There was a Yelp survey done recently that revealed that 9 of every 1,000 businesses in Hawaii were permanently closed, and that's one of the highest rates in the country. It's just good to know this because, our beaches obviously are the same, and our hiking trails are the same, and there's lots of, beauty still in Hawaii, and coming here is never a bad idea, but it has changed. There are a lot of businesses that have closed. It's just not the same.
Yeah, and a lot of festivals as well. If you were going to come for specific festivals or events, there's pretty much no events happening on Oahu right now because we can't have big crowds because social distancing and COVID regulations. For example, the Nahoku Hanohano Awards. Well, I guess this goes up on Monday, so that actually just happened over the weekend. And normally that's like a big in-person event that you can get tickets to and you can watch these really talented local musicians perform live. But that was actually all pre-recorded and is just being played on TV and streamed on the internet. And that's kind of what Hawaii events and festivals are right now. So
I just got an email about the marathon going virtual. I was like, oh, that's interesting. The Honolulu Marathon. What do you like? Do you just run around your house or something? I don't know.
We did something like that for Honolulu Family.
Oh, yeah. That's what it's going to be. But, there is something to, part of the, you've never done the marathon, right? Part of the excitement is being in the crowd. It's like being part of people running, 26 miles. I don't know. And just like the Okinawan Festival went online this summer, and that's a huge ethnic festival here on Oahu, and it's just not the same, you know?
Definitely. That I feel like that should just be like underneath our pre-travel testing program just says Hawaii. It's just not the same, because it's not. Another major festival for visitors and for locals, the Honolulu City Lights, will be vastly different this year. There will be no opening night ceremony. There will be no electric light parade. They will still have the ornaments on display, but they're really asking people not to gather. And I think another really important thing to remember is that it's not the same, and it can change too, for the better and for the worse. Right now we're in tier 1. Hopefully, we can reach our full opening. Everything's back to normal, tier 4. But if we get more cases, if we get more infections, we could see this whole pre-travel testing program just go out the window. Nothing's set in stone. And I think our government officials are going to try just respond to an increase in cases in like the safest way possible. I think that's kind of what we've seen so far.
Right. I mean, that's why it's so important to follow the rules. You know what I mean?
Please.
It's very important, like if you're traveling, to be responsible, to get the COVID test done, and if you didn't get a COVID test, to quarantine for 14 days. I mean, it's not worth it. I mean, I get it. I think in the very beginning of COVID, I remember we were all in the office and we saw all these like great deals, like to go to Australia or to travel to Japan. And it was so, I get it. Like there's all these cheap flights to Hawaii and you think, well, I want to take advantage of it. But just keep that in mind. Like this is a health and safety, like global crisis, and there are no vaccines right now and there's no cure for COVID. So, just to be responsible and making choices when you come here and, think about whether or not it's safe for you to travel as well. And I think these, testing program could work, but it's just a matter of, people being responsible and following the rules when they do get here.
Yeah, please wear a mask.
And wear a mask. And also, what's really interesting is this is, Oahu I think Oahu is where most of these visitors will come because right now the other islands are unsure about how they're going to deal with this pre-testing program. It seems like they all want to support it. All the counties want to support it, but they're not sure how. At first, Hawaii Island mayor decided not to.
That was kind of the news story going around. It was.
Right.
That was a headline.
That's right. And that's changing because they do want to support the program, but they're talking about adding a second test upon arrival to Hawaii Island. Maui and Kauai are doing the same thing. And in the case for Hawaii Island, they are seeing a surge in cases and deaths. So they're concerned. They obviously want to, stop the spread of coronavirus and feeling like if we open up too soon, that might just backfire. So, the other counties are still kind of figuring it out, even though they're going to open in like 4 days or 3 days.
Yeah, 3 days from this podcast.
We can't travel to the neighbor islands right now without having a quarantine. So these things are changing daily. So even by the time this is published, there'll probably be something new that we're going to have to report on.
Yeah, probably. Everything is changing. And I feel like, especially for the neighbor islands, Oahu really has been the hot spot of COVID in Hawaii. But, the neighbor islands are starting to see certain surges coming their way. And I think that is, a really scary thing for them because, we've been getting hundreds of cases a day, but, Big Island and Kauai and Maui have had much lower numbers. For them too, it'll be a very changing situation as their officials also try to deal with, an increase in visitors.
You're going to kill me. I have to tell you something.
What happened? No. What's wrong?
So my battery went from 64% to 6% just now. I don't even know how that happened. I don't know. I did plug in my light to my laptop as a battery source.
So that's definitely going to take more. It's okay. You can find us at HawaiiMagazine.com. You can find us on all of our social media channels at Hawaii Magazine. You can purchase, but seriously, thanks everyone for listening. We've got
4%.
We've got to run.
Okay.
We have a little bit of a timer. But you can find us at HawaiiMagazine.com, all of our social media channels. I think Hawaii Magazine will also be trying to tell everyone what's happening the best way we can. We are not a news website, but we definitely want to provide people with the information, the correct information and timely information when it comes to traveling to Hawaii And hopefully you can use our website as a resource when you get here and when you're planning to travel here. We have a lot of really great information. Everything will be in the show notes. Kat writes articles at 4 a.m. Because she's a crazy person who doesn't sleep. So, you can always come to hawaiimagazine.com to kind of find the pertinent information. Yeah, I think that's it. Anything you got to say before your laptop dies, Kat?
Also, it went up to 8% just now.
All right,
I don't understand it.
I just don't trust it anymore.
Well, anyway, no, that's it. I mean, yeah, HawaiiMagazine.com. Also, we just launched our Haunted Hawaii series on YouTube. So take a look at that every Friday. We'll have a short story by Lopaka Kapanui, who's a storyteller in Hawaii and known for his ghost tours. So that's super fun. We're just trying to make the most of it. So yeah, just come to our website, our social media channels, our YouTube now, and just enjoy Hawaii from afar. And then we hope to see you guys when you do get here safely,
Absolutely.
wearing a mask and social distancing.
Okay, everybody. Aloha.